I never thought I'd find myself clapping like a caffeinated seal at 30,000 feet, but that's exactly what happened on my first flight to the Philippines. Let me back up a bit. My name's Ashley. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm pretty much obsessed with international travel. I've flown to over 12 countries, seen everything from Icelandic lava fields to Moroccan markets, and even survived a screaming baby on a red-eye from Dubai to Atlanta. I really thought I'd seen it all, but I had never experienced a flight full of Filipinos. I was heading to Manila for a 2-week trip, a mix of vacation, food exploration, and of course, content creation. I'd heard the Philippines was full of beautiful islands, cheap mangoes, and people who say sorry even if you're the one who bumps into them. It sounded perfect. But halfway through that flight, I learned something no travel guide ever mentioned. Filipinos turn airplanes into emotional potluck-style family reunions. And I was absolutely not ready. First, let's just talk about the boarding situation. Most flights I've been on are full of people silently avoiding eye contact, all pretending they don't smell that weird airplane scent of recycled air and judgment. But on this flight, Filipinos board planes like they're walking onto the set of a 90s sitcom. Everyone was smiling, chatting, and handing out snacks before we even took off. People were apologizing for existing even when no one was in their way. I sat down next to this tiny Filipina grandma, or Lola, wearing sunglasses that looked bigger than her entire face. She immediately leaned over and said, "Hi, anak, you like sandwich? I have tuna." She had said exactly 10 words to me and was already offering me food, like she'd known me since preschool. Thanks, I said, not even hungry, but suddenly terrified to refuse. She just unwrapped the sandwich and put it in my hand anyway. "Don't be shy," she whispered. "We will share." Next came the boxes. Balikbayan boxes. I'd read about these online, but seeing them in real life was something else. These were giant cardboard boxes, wrapped in enough packing tape to survive a meteor strike, being gently shoved into overhead bins like they were filled with newborn unicorns. I heard someone say loudly, "Kunin mo yung maliit na box dun sa ilalim," and someone else responded, "Ay, wag mo kalimutan yung pasalubong." I didn't understand a single word, but somehow I felt included. Then the plane took off, and about an hour in, something happened that would permanently change me. Filipinos started passing around food, like it was a moving potluck party, but with seatbelts. There were crackers, banana chips, Mentos, Skyflakes, and, I am not joking, a whole tray of Jollibee spaghetti. When the flight attendant came by and said, "Ma'am, no outside food," the Lola beside me just smiled politely and said, "No, this not outside. Inside luggage." I completely lost it. And then I accepted a second tuna sandwich. About 3 hours into the flight, I noticed something else. People weren't just traveling for vacation. They were traveling to go home. Many of them were OFWs, or overseas Filipino workers, who had been away for years. They were already crying halfway through the flight, just thinking about reuniting with their families. I saw one woman watching a video of her baby on her phone and just openly sobbing. The man beside her patted her shoulder gently and said, "Konting tiis lang, lapit na tayo." I had to ask what that meant. He told me, "It means, just hold on, we're almost there." That single sentence punched me right in the emotional kidneys. Suddenly, the plane wasn't just transportation. It was a miracle delivery service, bringing people home. Finally, after 15 hours in the air, 3 tuna sandwiches, and one surprisingly deep conversation about Filipino telenovelas, the pilot announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have begun our descent into Manila." Everyone straightened up. Seatbelts clicked into place. The turbulence shook us around like popcorn kernels in a pan. And then we landed. Smooth, clean, easy, like butter on a hot pancake. And that's when it happened. The plane erupted in applause. Every single Filipino on board started clapping. Loudly, joyfully, like they'd just witnessed Beyoncé descend from heaven holding a passport. I just froze. I looked to my left. I looked to my right. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the grandmother beside me. "Why is everyone clapping?" She blinked at me and smiled. "Because we landed safely, anak." "But we do that on all planes?" "Yes," she said. But here in the Philippines, she looked around the cabin, then lowered her sunglasses dramatically. Life is not always smooth, so when we reach something safely, we celebrate. I swear I almost cried right then and there. Then she nudged me with her elbow. Clap na, so they know you're one of us. And I didn't hesitate. I clapped like my American spirit had just switched citizenship mid-flight. I clapped for the OFW moms and dads. I clapped for the Balikbayan boxes. I clapped because that plane had become a family reunion in the sky. And then I clapped because I suddenly understood something profound. Filipinos don't clap because they're afraid. They clap because they're grateful. Because landing isn't just arriving, it's coming home. As soon as we walked out of the plane, it was like entering the next phase of Filipino airport life. There were tears. There were signs held up high with "Welcome Home Papa" written on them. There were entire families squeezed into one arrival gate like it was a BTS concert. I watched one OFW get absolutely swarmed by 30 people, all shouting, "Tita!" And she just laughed through all the tackles like she was being welcomed home by a rugby team. Someone pushed a giant box past me with "chocolates plus shoes plus shampoo" scrawled on the side. Someone else brought fried fish as a welcome home gift. The smell was aggressive, but also, it was kind of joyful. Even the airport guards were smiling like they were part of the reunion. Before I left the airport, my seatmate, the sandwich Lola, came up to me one last time. "You like Philippines?" "Yes," I said, honestly. "I've never felt this welcomed in my life." She handed me one last thing, a crumpled pack of Piatos chips. "For when you feel hungry later," she said. "Filipinos always share." I wanted to hug her. I wanted to adopt her. I wanted her to adopt me. As we went our separate ways, I turned one last time and asked the question that was still floating in my head. Why do people clap even if it's not their first time landing? She just nodded thoughtfully. Because flying is never sure. Life is never sure. So when you reach home, she put her hand on her heart. You give thanks. I'll never forget that line. And I'll never forget the day I learned why Filipinos clap when the plane lands. Because when that plane touches the ground, it's not just about arriving, it's about belonging. And after joining in on that applause, I think a little part of me landed there too. Thanks so much for watching and sharing this experience with me. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more adventures. See you in the next one.